coming alongside EO in that regard and being an SAP was just super fulfilling to kind of say, hey, how can we help? Honestly, I never assumed. I remember Samir saying like, okay, so there's like 4 ways you can be involved. And if you want to just be a member, we'll take, your membership, and you don't have to be an SAP, but if you want to be an SAP, and I was like, well, I'm not making any money right now as a company. May not be a great time to become a member. Maybe an SAP would give me a lot of this. And we were doing it as an in-kind member or SAP member. Yeah. So we donated a lot of our services, but it honestly was a fantastic decision to say, let's link arms with EO. Because then I joined Catalyst coming out of EO, which is a big piece of kind of the decision that changed everything for our company. And then joined EO as a member after that.
Welcome to The Decision from Nashville EO, where you will hear the rest of the story after tough decisions were made by entrepreneurs who faced adversity and lived to tell about it.
Welcome to The Decision, the podcast by EO Nashville by and for members, where we interview our members talking about all the fun that they have starting, running, scaling businesses. My name is Eric Jackson, who never introduces himself. With me is Mr. Robert Hartline, my partner in crime. How are you doing, by the way? We talked about me over there.
I'm good. I'm doing good. I was admiring your new haircut, and I was like, you know what? It's about time for me to have a new haircut. Yeah. Life is good.
Important part of life. It's like therapy for me.
Yeah. Do you tell
I need a lot of therapy.
Do you tell your barber deep, dark secrets of Eric?
Yeah, sure do.
Yeah, it's good.
Yep. Important stuff. All right. I'm going to introduce our guest today, and I'm going to wrap a question or a thought starter around this. Our guest today, Mr. Luke McElroy, Orange Thread. You and your story and EO Nashville and COVID have this, there's this overlapping story that tell us about from your perspective, how what you were going through as someone who does live events or did live events at the time, maybe still do, and how that relationship happened and what your experience was like.
Dang, let me see if I can answer that as best as possible. A lot's in that.
Yes.
COVID was a fantastic time to run a business, right?
Oh,
half the people are like, heck no. Half the people are like, absolutely yes. So I run a company called Orange Thread Live, as you said, and we do live event production. So we own all the sound equipment, the lighting equipment, the screens, cameras, all that go into corporate events, conventions, seminars, big stuff at, convention centers and hotel ballrooms and all this. And so COVID was fantastic for us. We were told by other people that we could not gather. And that makes me operating kind of a little bit interesting. And we had a friend, or I have a client who is a part of EO, and she texted me one night and said, hey, I'm going to connect you with this woman named Samira, who, as we know, is the lifeblood of EO Nashville. The reason that this thing is at all a success is because of her and her team and all the work that they do. And my client said, I'm just going to connect you with her. I hope it's worthwhile. They're trying to figure out some virtual stuff for events and chapter engagement. And I think you're the guy. And so anyway, I took a phone call from her, and I don't joke when I say this. That was one of probably thousands of phone calls that I had with Samira and her team throughout COVID, as we were helping them, EO chapter, figure out how do you do events virtually? How do you, and not just be another lame Zoom call. Like that was the thing we kept talking about. Cause there was Zoom fatigue already starting early. And so, in the midst of us having to pivot hard to figure out how do we help our clients, here I was getting a chance to meet an organization that now means a ton to me, and I'm now a member of. At the time I was not. I was a complete outsider. I had no clue. I'd never heard of EO. And it was so energizing to just get a chance to come alongside an organization that was helping other entrepreneurs, that was just trying to connect people and go, let's get out of the way and let's let experiences guide how we can improve one another. And I'm like, man, I'd love to. I was doing these virtual events, and I'm like, I'm learning so much from some of these speakers and the people I would interact with, the president or the board or whomever. So that was kind of how I first learned about EO and honestly how we got engaged. with.
It was just a beautiful marriage. And then, of course, the SAPs played a huge factor in helping EO members figure out what in the world am I going to do and how am I going to survive.
Yeah, in fact, I remember at that first all-member meeting, SAP's got the But Not For award that EO gives out every year of like, here's the people who kind of made this thing happen or whatever. And so because of that, fun fact, I joined as an SAP. So that was actually my first encounter, was kind of that same period, but it was like right after that. And I was like, wow, these SAPs actually can make a difference. And that's been a big thing of mine. Like I just, in our events and the things that we get to work alongside clients, we want to make an impact. We want to do something so well. In fact, our name Orange Thread kind of represents our core values, but like we want to be that thread that like if it gets pulled, you notice that thread is gone. Like that's part of that name, Orange Thread. And so coming alongside EO in that regard and being an SAP was just super fulfilling to kind of say, hey, how can we help? Honestly, I never assumed. I remember Samir saying like, okay, so there's like 4 ways you can be involved. And if you want to just be a member, we'll take, your membership, and you don't have to be an SAP, but if you want to be an SAP, and I was like, well, I'm not making any money right now as a company. May not be a great time to become a member. Maybe an SAP would give me a lot of this. And we were doing it as an in-kind member or SAP member. Yeah. So we donated a lot of our services, but it honestly was a fantastic decision to say, let's link arms with EO. Cause then I joined Catalyst coming out of EO, which is a big piece of kind of the decision that changed everything for our company. And then joined EO as a member after that.
What was that decision?
So that decision ultimately was shut down or continue and pivot during COVID. So I started Orange Thread in 2008. Coming out of college, I kind of had this fantastic foundation. Parents had paid for college. I went to school here at Belmont University in Nashville, and I was facing no debt. I didn't have a, significant other or like a relationship that was going to tie me down for family. I had no commitments or obligations. And so I started Orange Thread. But what I noticed is since 2008 to 2020, I had gotten comfortable. I mean, just in my life, like we had kind of plateaued revenue wise, and I was happy with what we were making. I was happy with the events we were doing, but I had lost that spark. I had lost that drive to say, am I building something that makes an impact? Am I building something that has legacy? Am I building something that I can pass on? So anyway, COVID hits and totally disrupts everything, right? And I cannot tell you all the number of times I caught myself on phone calls with friends who are entrepreneurs that were in our space. And I mean, it was the darkest season of their life. I mean, some of them were like, I got to let everybody go tomorrow, 2-3 weeks into the pandemic. And I'm like, whoa, easy, Tiger, like slow down, but I had these nights. I mean, I was newly married. We had just bought a house and COVID hit. And I'm like, do I jump now and try and save what I've got, the cash in the bank or whatever? I mean, I knew that if I was going to sell, there was nothing I could sell it for. I mean, it was literally worth nothing at the time. That causes you to also cry yourself and laugh yourself to sleep simultaneously when you wake up and you go, I've been building something for 11, 12 years at that time, and it's worth jack squat. I mean, So the decision was, do I let my sort of fear of the future decide my present decisions, or do I let my hope of the future decide my present situation? And I'm a man of faith. I think my relationship with Christ guides a lot. And I just remember thinking to myself, okay, what is the worst thing that could happen? Okay, I pivot, I squander all of my money. I'm probably going to be okay. Like my soul's going to be okay. My relationship with my wife is going to be okay. We may have some hardships we have to navigate through, but maybe that's a blessing that I will benefit from in the future. And so what we chose to do, the decision ultimately was pivot and set ourselves up for the hope that would eventually come back. Right. And it has nothing to do with whether or not we thought events were going to happen. It was, will I be able to figure this thing out? Right. I mean, 11 years in, I didn't really want to, but it was the spark that changed everything. So
how long did you sit on the fence trying to figure out what was next?
Well, I remember it like it was yesterday. So March 16th was what I call D-Day. I walked in the office. I think that weekend or somewhere around then was when the government announced, like, we're asking you to shelter in place. And I remember having to do a Zoom call because we had done some production over the years and I'd had a remote employee, Zoom was like something we had been using for like a year or two. It was not new to us. And I did a Zoom call. First time the entire team was on one. I'm sure everybody listening to this is like, I remember that first Zoom staff meeting. And I just said to them, I said, hey, we're on an exit ramp. I have a prediction that we're going to start seeing a lot of events cancel. I didn't know exactly what that would mean. But I said, hey, we've got a little bit of cash in the bank. We're a debt-free company. I look at this as we've just kicked the car into neutral and we're going to glide down the exit ramp. And the hope is by the time we get to the end of that exit ramp, there's enough gas in the tank to hit the accelerator so we can go back up the highway, right? And get back on the road. And so that was March 16th. I think it was probably in my mind, I felt like I needed to make a decision somewhere in the April, May timeframe because I was kind of under the premise that I had about 5 to 6 months cash in the bank. And if I wanted to do anything to give me an off ramp personally or my family an off ramp personally, I kind of needed to make a decision in about a month or two. And in 2 months, the world was in a worse place in the events realm than it was March. I mean, within 3 weeks of March 16th, like every single client on our books had canceled. Everyone.
Had no choice. Right?
No choice. Yeah.
And this is like, give us their deposit back kind of thing.
100%. In fact, that's interesting you bring that up.
Oh, yeah.
I remember one of the phone calls I had with a guy who was like freaking out about, I should fire all my staff. I should take this money in the bank. I should just hold on to it. And he's like, and I got a client that's wanting their money back. I said, well, give them back. We'll give the money back. And he's like, no, I need that money. I was like, but it's not your money. It's a deposit. And I remember telling myself in step one of this, I'm going to hang in there. I'm going to give every penny back. I'm not going to furlough a single staff. I'm not going to lay anybody off. And that was what caused me to go, okay, let's see how much longer I can kind of hold that together. And the reason I gave the money back was I thought, this is a pivotal moment. Again, I wanted to let the hope of my future determine my present actions, not the fear of my future determine the present actions. So that hope was, I want you back. I want to win you back as a client. Fun tactical story. We had just won the contract. It was a verbal contract at the time, so it hadn't actually been sent, but it was sitting in my inbox of the actual contract for doing a trade show booth in Orlando for a new client. And it was a client we'd been trying to get for a couple of years. And they had just awarded it to us. And then March 16th happens. And the event was supposed to be in June. And they said, hey, let's hold off on signing that. We don't know really what's going to happen. And like 2 weeks later, they canceled, which was shocking because we're like, oh, by June, this will be back up and running. We'll be fine. Well, we gave them sort of complete, hey, do we owe you anything for all those meetings and the site? And I was like, no, nothing. You owe me nothing. So, and I remember thinking to myself, this is like a huge client. I could probably say, yeah, you owe me something, but let's just kick it down the road and you can use it in a future event. And I remember making that decision and said, but that's not right. I'd want the money back. Like, I don't know where they're going to be in a year. Yeah. Fast forward a year later, they were the first event to come back to Music City Center. They had 20,000 people. It was the first time in 2021 when they had opened the thing. And it was the Southern Baptist Convention. And the way that the politics work in that organization is every previous year, they assign a new host church to lead what they call the Pastors Conference, which is like the pre-conference. Well, they didn't have one in Orlando and they were moving it to Nashville. And in 2021, they didn't have a host Nashville church to take on this pre-conference. So lo and behold, that event or that organization that we were partnered with, or supposed to be partnered with, ended up being asked by the convention at large, hey, can you create a equipping conference for everybody the 2 days prior to the SBC convention? And we want you guys to handle. And they were like, we'd love to. So lo and behold, a trade show booth that I gave all the like release in the world, hey, you owe me nothing, turned out to be a like 7 venue, 12 semi-truck, 60 crew member event in person. And it was our first one back. And it literally
put you back in the map.
The game. Yes.
What a relief. Yeah.
It gave us the cash flow we needed to buy a bunch of equipment and it kind of changed the thing. And so again, that was another decision. Like we had never owned gear. And I'm sitting here in COVID going, I got nothing that's worth anything. And so when I said, when cash comes, we're going to start buying gear. And
well, I think part of that, I think it's important to note, you had money in the bank. It could have made you feel differently if you had none. You could have operated differently. Like it just kind of goes to show you how important it is to have backup plan because you could have easily just navigated all your decision making through scarcity, and then it's really messes with your mind when you don't have the resources. You make dumb decisions when you don't have resources,
and you sleep better when you know you have enough money in the bank to pay for the next couple of months. And it allowed me, I think the wisest thing I got out of that was it allowed me the wisdom to say, I don't have to make a decision right now. Right. Yeah. So when you say, how long did you have to make that decision? Well, I knew I had 6 months. I wanted to make that decision in 2 months, but you're right. I mean, it took the pressure off. And that's been a principle I've lived ever since starting the company is how do I make sure we've got an off ramp that when push comes to shove, we're ready. And then when it started turning around, we had pivoted pretty hard to virtual at that point. In fact, Q4 2020 was one of the most profitable quarters for us in company history at that point. And the reason for it was we didn't own gear. So we didn't have to bring in large sound systems and have semi trucks drive this stuff all over the place. And I could go on and on and on. I didn't have to have all this huge labor. I mean, it was essentially IP from us, small system setups that we had a little bit of that equipment already in house, and a lot of our willingness to kind of pound the pavement and work hard ourselves. So we didn't have to pay that out to a bunch of other vendors, So we kind of found going into that 2021 SBC convention, I had cash in the bank that I could buy equipment to kind of give me that leg up. And if you all know anything about the event industry at that time, there were so many companies come January, February 2021 that were like selling everything in their shop at pennies on the dollar to just survive cash flow again, because their loans had started calling up, hey, we need, all the forgivenesses and all that sort of stuff, the furloughs had all sort of kind of calmed down. And I was able to get some incredible equipment at pennies on the dollars because I had just kind of waited, I mean, I think Warren Buffett has that idea of like, when everybody else is fearful, get greedy. When everybody else is greedy, get fearful, or something like that. That might not be exactly right. And I think that, though that wasn't conscious in my brain, I think I've looked back and gone, because of the freedom of not worrying about the paycheck.
Right. Having the cash there.
Yeah. I was able to kind of make a move when nobody else in the industry could.
Yeah. Well, and you also chose to be calm in the midst of a storm.
Totally. Yeah.
Because you had planned ahead. There's, I have a card up on one of my bookshelves that says, "Do not be afraid," which appears in the Bible 365 times. I have to remind myself of that all the time. And you had that inside of you and made it work.
There was definitely fear.
Well, sure.
I think it'd be wrong for me to sit here and say I wasn't worried. I mean, my wife and I would laugh laugh at night because we were so tired of crying.
Yeah.
I mean, we were newlyweds. We had a house, which means we put all of our life savings into this thing. And now I have a company that's worth nothing. She was a PRN nurse practitioner getting her master's and she couldn't get hours to save her life. The hospital was cutting stuff because they'd cut non-elective stuff. Her dad was diagnosed with cancer. And so literally we were like laughing ourselves to sleep. Like, what else, God? What else are you going to throw at us right now?
Yeah.
So it wasn't, I wasn't afraid. It was more, I was trying to let the hope of what could be in the future define the present.
Well, I had to write that on that card up on my shelf for a reason, because I'm afraid a lot.
Yeah.
It's just the remander. Hey, everything usually works out. Our worst fears almost never come to fruition. And
even if it is, it's not as bad as it,
exactly.
It's a lifestyle impact. It's not who you are as a human. I think that's something that was really good for me as I was on these phone calls with everybody who was like, doomsday. I mean, they were like, the world is ended. The events industry's gone. What are we going to do? And I'm like, well, I'm still a human. I mean, I think I still have worth somewhere in here. Like, and it helped big time being able to separate. And I think as entrepreneurs, I struggle with this even today. We're a almost 10x company as we were in 2019 before all this. And I still have to remind myself, you're not your business. Like your business can die. Your idea cannot work. You can completely fail. You could go bankrupt and you're still worth something. Like you could still kick something back up. We've got the grit. We've got the gumption to say, let's go start something new. I remember telling my mom, she called, "How are you doing?" Look, I'm like, "I'm fine." Like I'll start a landscaping company if I want, if I absolutely have to, because it's trucks, it's contractors, it's gear that travels around town. It's like, it seems like a similar business model. And as far as I know, COVID hasn't stopped the grass from growing, you know?
Right.
So, why live events? What got you in the business originally?
Dude, there's just nothing like the energy that comes from that moment when the lights go down at the beginning of a show or a concert. Now, we don't really do concerts all that much, but there's nothing like that energy, that expectation that happens when you're in a live event. You can't replicate it. I mean, I think COVID taught us that. We really can't replicate entertainment or live events or that connection, that need to be connected to others. And so I always loved that. I fell into it, honestly, through just kind of happenstance. I mean, growing up, I grew up in the church and I was always around kind of production environments, but my parents gave us a back room that was in their basement that was unfinished. My brother was in a band and I was never overly musical. I technically play the drums because I went to Belmont. I had to play something.
Sure.
Belmont, it's not do you play something, it's what do you play?
Right.
So I was also a drummer. But the back room that they gave us was really for my brother's band. And I was like, well, I don't know, let me go throw some lighting equipment in here. And so when I was in middle school, I was taking all of my Christmas present money and going and buying concert lighting equipment. I was going and buying, I remember going to Home Depot and we put a bunch of pulleys up in the basement and we had this curtain. And so we could open it from the back of the room. And so he'd have these concerts where we'd open, and I don't know, it's just this playground. I just loved it. And it was like this laboratory environment. To this day, that room still exists. The production stuff's gone, but there's still 9 20 amp circuits in the ceiling because I needed that much power. We had to put a whole separate box. And so I had parents, I guess, Robert, to answer the question, that really supported experiment, play, have fun.
Yeah.
And I had a brother who was doing good music and I enjoyed the technology side. I love the problem solving side. There's something in the mechanism of troubleshooting technology that just gets me excited for some reason. Like there is a problem to solve everywhere you turn with technology.
You like the little dopamine hits from getting it to work.
Yeah.
It's not working.
And it doesn't ever make sense why it worked because it's not what you tried, but there's a process in that. There's a method in that, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I love it. And it's just honestly something that I happen to be good at. I mean,
what do you think has changed the live event business in terms of how it operated before and to now?
I think there's more of an awareness for our need to connect with one another. I don't know if you see that in your own businesses, but I see that in our teams. I think this is why all these Fortune 500 companies are maybe saying, hey, let's return to office, because there's just a relational piece you can't replace when everybody's virtual, when everybody's remote. And I think the events industry has caught wind of that. But I also think they've gotten far more effective in their timings, because I think post-COVID, we all realize how little time we have in the world, how important family is to us, how important non-work things are. And so what I think I'm seeing is events have kind of gotten shorter. They're getting a little bit smarter about every decision they make about pricing because COVID allowed them or forced them to do that. Now, the unhealthy thing that I think I'm seeing in events is post-COVID, guys like myself, event planners, the people who kind of were the champions of making things happen, we enabled really bad behavior. And that was, we'll let you make a last minute decision because we need the work. And what we've found is decisions are made way too late.
Yeah.
We've seen people.
And can screw up a whole show.
Well, not just that, but like you'll get clients or corporations that are like, well, we want to do an all staff meeting. They'll get all the planning, but they won't sign the contract until it's borderline too late to pull it off. And then I can't get the best resources. I can't get, I can't dedicate the right equipment or whatever to pull it off well. And so it's the understanding of like time moves really fast, and COVID sped time up in some ways. But that didn't change the fact that you still need so much time to decide what your setup going to be. You still need to install it. You still need to decide what are you going to serve for a meal, and that stuff still has to get cooked. Yeah. A steak can't be microwaved. But
I know you do a lot of stuff with churches and stuff because their business has dramatically changed. And because they've gone a lot virtual and kept it going.
I actually think they're going back to in person more. Yeah. I know my church stopped streaming, and I was against that at first. I mean, we had a newborn. I was like, I can't stream because we weren't going to bring our young daughter into kind of a big gathering early in her life. I think that was 2021, and so we were kind of like uncertain. But they had stopped streaming right around that time frame, and I think for them, their decision was, we want to force real community.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's a little bit like forum experience. I mean, you just can't be real when you don't get a chance to be across. You get to look someone in the eyes. You get to see how much storytelling's here. And I think that that's what's so vital. But I think the other thing churches have learned, I think any organization should learn this, is content's king, right? And having the ability to put more content out that actually impacts people and isn't just noise is how effective organizations grow and get their story out and impact people and sell their product or serve their community.
How much in the event business do you see or doing events to activate customer acquisition beyond entertainment?
So for us, that's the vast majority. So one of the things that makes us unique is we don't do touring events. So there's a lot of production companies in this town that I quote unquote compete with that do tours. You know, they'll do country or pop or Christian or whatever. We don't do that. So everything we do is a corporate event in some regard. And I would say all of them are trying to activate some sort of increase in some way. It's either activating their sales team to have a more clear and concise idea of their strategy or their new products. It's activating alignment and leadership. Hey, let's have one of the healthcare groups we have, they'll bring all their CEOs in for all the hospitals. And it's like, let's just all be on the same page. Is there an alignment as to what we're trying to hit, right? Because vision leaks and mission, can sort of, drip through the organization in non-intentional ways. So I think everybody has an alternative. I mean, the nonprofit stuff we do, they're trying to intentionally ask for money to fundraise, to pay for a mission but I even want to go as far to say those that may not seem to have a purpose. I'll say this, and hopefully I don't get in trouble for this, but like EO, all the social events they do and the money they pour into that is so that we as community members feel engaged, have a great time, connected to a brand. So they're really trying to, it's a little bit like a PR play. They're trying to level up the brand experience and let you love it, And so all that has sort of a like ulterior motive behind the scenes. I think every event, I don't think you do events without an ulterior motive, is maybe what I'm trying to say.
Well, I think when you get team members together that are separated in distance and maybe some working from home, you get them all together in a room and like, okay, it's a reminder, this is the vision, this is where we're headed, these are our core values, remember? Yeah. And then storytelling, these guys are doing a great job getting them to tell the story and getting people to connect. I think that's how they justify spending the money that they spend to galvanize the mission, because people lose sight of why they're doing it and what value they're giving a client. And like, I could see how important that is. Part of the work that I do with EOS is like rolling it out. Like, you got to communicate the mission. If not, people just get distracted and they fall out of love with the work they do. Totally. I think when you get back together and get storytelling happening, I think people are like, oh yeah, okay.
During COVID, I actually read the book. I think it's called The Meaning of Moments by Chip and Dan Heath. I don't know if you guys have ever read it. Mm-hmm. They were the ones that did the book Made to Stick. They've written a couple, but The Meaning of Moments was really kind of the science behind gatherings. And it was fascinating for me to read in the midst of COVID when nobody was gathering. But to your point, one of the things that they talk about is that people remember the highlights of their life, or they remember the highlights, and that's what creates a memory, right? Or ordinary doesn't create memory. And I think one of the things I've come to learn is that this is the reason why events are needed. In fact, let me just say this. If anybody's listening to this and you don't do big corporate gatherings with a company like us that does production, you still need to make events. You still need to make your company retreat or your staff meeting or the first day of a new employees. It needs to be an event. And they talk about this because if we can create sort of mile marker like moments for employees or for key customers or for management, it allows the information that's communicated in those environments way stickier. So I think what companies have learned from the science of it is if we can create this huge event, and that event can have a lot of high production value and an incredible host or entertainer or comedian or maybe even a world-class speaker. I mean, we probably even see this in EO Nerve. Those moments stick in your brain. There's something super sticky about it. Well, if as an organization, as an entrepreneur, I can link that to our organizational mission or the vision of where we're going or the strategy we're about to roll out, why would I not leverage that? Right.
And at a personal level, you have to pack a bag. You have to go somewhere. Yeah. You've got to take care of make sure that everything that you needed to do is done before you leave. Hand the keys to somebody else, go somewhere and be completely focused. It's one of the reasons why we do forum retreats.
Yeah.
It's an altered state to travel.
Exactly.
And you start there. Oh yeah.
It forces
I need to change some things.
It forces change. And so you go to this place and
it's an interesting point you bring up about forum. I know you guys have been in forum for a while. I've only been in EO for a couple of years now, but I don't know if I could remember every forum meeting. I may remember highlights,
right?
But I bet you guys could remember every forum retreat, and it's because of the stickiness of the memory that's.
And we're going to
crafted.
Vienna, Bratislava, and Budapest next week, and I can't wait.
I love it.
Wow. It's we've been all over the world, and I tell people about this because I think it really, we do a lot of work. We've got these exercises that we do, but we also, again, the being in person, we hang out. We go have dinner, and some of the things that came up during the exercises come back up.
Yeah.
And we get to riff on that. And by the time we get home, we're ready to run through a wall, and get things done. But that time away from the normal pressures of life makes everything better.
What do you see happens when an organizer fails on their event? Like from your perspective, like you do the production, you do a great show, but it's a lot of them getting on stage and the messaging, things that are beyond your control. What do you see them messing up on sometimes?
Yeah, there's a lot of ways we could go, I guess, about this. But you said something caught my attention. You said the presenter. And so that could be the executive, or that could be the person who that meeting is theirs. I think they miss the opportunity to make the memory or that moment about the people in the audience more than about them. We do a conference on the side. We kind of have a nonprofit that serves a lot of churches, to your point. And the biggest piece of advice I give to any presenter that gets up to speak is, however much you think you want to speak about yourself, cut that in half. Don't tell some story that's going to, take 15 minutes of your keynote that you may only have 30 of a captive moment. The story is probably not as exciting to someone else as it is to you. Cut all the BS out, right? Like just trim it back. And I see executives do this over and over and over. And they want to tell about a story they had with a customer. But they make it about them. And I think the missed moment is, we need stories to communicate well, but make that story about customers. Make that story about, the people in the room. A perfect example is we do a lot of work through another agency for Tractor Supply. And it's like, they need to make that about their store managers in the moment, not their executive team, not their central staff. We do work with Chick-fil-A. Their stories need to be about Chick-fil-A operators, the staff, the frontline person, the impact that one person made as they were handing a chicken sandwich to somebody, not what Andrew, Kathy, Dan, Kathy, and the Kathy family are doing like that. And they're really good about that. And people who invite agencies to come along and kind of help them refine their message. But hopefully that makes sense. Like I think the misses.
But a lot of it's probably feels like you are kind of partnering with that client to make sure it does come off.
At times, yeah. I mean, depends on our seat. Sometimes we have a seat at the table to help them craft content. And for us, that may start as simple as a PowerPoint presentation, but it really is helping them figure out what's important to put on a slide. I also see way too many organizations put way too much data on a slide.
Yeah, oh yeah.
We're working with an organization right now that they do all their own stuff, and they sent me a sample PowerPoint deck so we could put it in a render for an upcoming event we're pitching. And I almost lost it because I was like, no one's going to read the data on this slide. You need to highlight your two biggest points, put it on there. You can talk through it. You can be like, hey, we did this study and this, but so that's one of them. But the second piece is we get to kind of see these rehearsals. And sometimes an executive will walk up to us as like a true bystander who knows nothing about this content and will come up to me and go, so Luke, what did you think? The rehearsal. Sometimes I have to be careful about how open do I want to be versus how do I just want to encourage the good stuff.
It's probably a tough call to make.
It is, because sometimes you're like, I don't think you have a clue.
This could have been an email.
Yeah,
right? This could have been an email.
Yeah. So
now, how are you as a leader post getting into EO? And what was it like for you before? Like, how have you shifted in your leadership style after being in it?
Yeah, one of the things that kind of happened during COVID, remember I said I would kind of cry, laugh myself to sleep because I realized I'd built something that was worth nothing. I remember a decision that was kind of part of this whole, do I pivot, do I quit, was if I pivot, part of that pivot means I've got to build something that far exceeds me. I've got to build something that has worth beyond me. And I remember going through Catalyst and Michael Burcham said, a company worth selling is a great company worth running. And I was like, oh, what does that look like, right? And so you start diving into, oh, wow, a company that's worth a lot means the key man at the top of the totem pole really isn't that needed. So it shifted my leadership to say, I can't be the doer. I'll keep a couple of key clients so I have a pulse on the business. But as we grow, I need to make sure other people own these relationships. They own their processes. I doubled down post-COVID in developing standard operating procedures. I had not a single document pre-COVID that said, here's how we operate, or here's how we put together a show, or here's how we engineer something. Now we have hundreds, and we just launched a digital wiki, which now I feel like AI could probably have done in no man's time. But and I've just decided that I need to not be the speed bump in every decision. A lot of leaders go, oh, I need to have my hand or my thumbprint on it. And I'm like, nope, that means you can't sell it, or that means someone else can't run it. And I think the big shift has been, the leadership shift for me has been hire a lead team, a sort of, direct reports team that I can trust immensely, and let them do their job, stay out of their way enough to let them do their job. But I have to care about the thing that probably I have the greatest impact, and that's culture. I try and not let my hand off of culture and get involved when I need to. And, our organization's way larger today than it was in 2019, but I still want to know the newest employee or the employee that's furthest away from me on an org chart. I want to know them just as well as I know my direct reports. And that's just because of my personal side, but it's like, I can be friends with them long after. But I think the change is, am I building a business worth selling? And that is going to be a great business worth running at some point.
Any important decisions you've had to navigate within EO that Forum helped you with?
Yeah. So, So I was in Catalyst Forum in that whole COVID season, when I was in that sort of pivot mode. It had been now a year, right? And it was right before that SBC 2021 Nashville gathering. And I went to my Catalyst Forum, and I remember saying to them, guys, like, I got cash in the bank, but I feel like there's a path to buy like $80,000 worth of equipment. It's probably worth $150,000, $200,000 equipment. So I'm getting this for like half off. I think I could probably make, a couple $100,000 over the next couple of years. If I do this, this would maybe help cash. And I was so fearful, right? I said, I'm not going to admit not being fearful, but I was fearful. And I think it was because I had realized a year post-COVID, the cash in the banks would allow us to survive. Why would I give up the only lifeline I had? And I remember everyone in the forum going, in fact, I even said, hey, we can break Gestalt. I don't need to, just shoot me straight. And they all said, you're an idiot if you don't buy this. And I remember walking out going, what am I blind to that they aren't? And it was, they've seen what's happened in the last year. They've seen us pivot. They've seen that agility allow us to be freer and not just a cash conservative way, but hey, we've got a roadmap now and things are opening up. Again, it was like, I'll say this in front of you all on this podcast. I was really strong in that conviction of let's let the future hope define present at the beginning of COVID. But I felt like towards the end, I actually had gone back to, ooh, I'm letting fear stop my future growth because I don't want to give up the cash. That was the lifeline. That was that buoy I held on to.
Yeah.
And so we ended up buying it, and that forum laughed at me because at the end of the year, I think I ended up spending something like $250,000 or $500,000 on new equipment.
It's a good move then.
From that point, like 8 months later, and they all are like, remember when you were freaking out about $80,000?
So if you were with a new EO member starting next week, what tips would you give them to navigate their EO experience?
That's a good question. Tips on how to joining?
Yeah, no, just tips on to get the most out of their EO experience.
Oh man, I think I haven't done a great job with this, but it's what I try and tell myself every time I have a window of opportunity. Make the most of every opportunity you have in EO to get to know people. I know when I joined, we had a young girl at home, daughter at home, and My wife was trying to work still. And so like time was not something I had to give up much of, but I tried to go to every event I could, shake as many hands as I could. Cause I figured if I'm going to invest this much of my time, I don't want the 6 forum members that I'm in forum to be the only people I know. I remember jumping into the membership committee, and I'm still on it today. It's still my favorite committee. And it's like, that's when you start to get to know people. I had a friend who said you should join the board as soon as you can, because it's a great way to get to know some of the most engaged members and some of the smartest entrepreneurs in this town who care about helping it all grow. I haven't done that yet because of the time commitment, but I think that's what I would say. Go to events, join a committee, because that's going to be how you start meeting people outside of the 6, 7, 8 in your forum that you go deep with. You're going to actually get relationship outside of it.
Amen.
Luke, thanks so much for joining us. Listen, if you are an entrepreneur in Nashville, Tennessee, check out eonashville.com. Learn how over 320 of us gather every single month in a forum experience to learn and make powerful decisions together so we can navigate our entrepreneurial lives. Thanks for watching, and hope you have a wonderful rest of your week.
Thanks for listening to the Decision Podcast by Nashville EO. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.